Hello, my name is Bill Bross, and I'm a developer here at Veith Consulting. Today's video is going to cover how to use the grid editor for setting up a booth map in event registration. Now, at this point, we're going to assume that you've already set up the booth registration in the overall event settings. If you're unsure about how to do that, please see our previous video about how to set up the configuration settings and enable it for an event. Now we're going to take a look at this calendar event here. That's the one we're going to be using as our sample event here. So we're just going to show you how to create a general booth map and how to use the grid editor here. Any event that's got a booth map set up for it is going to have this link right here on the right for booths. So this is exactly where you're going to go if you need to make any changes to the booth map. If you need to move booths around, if you need to add more, if you need to change anything about it, this is going to be the first place you're going to go. So if we start here, this is exactly how it's going to look when you first start a new booth map. It's going to basically set up a grid for you and leave it blank. Now you see the grid lines when you're in admin mode here, but when someone is registering for it, they won't see the grid lines. This is strictly for you when you're setting it up so that you can see where you're placing things. Now you'll see here we have tons of different options here. I'm going to try to go over them one at a time here, and then we'll go into depth a little bit more. Starting at the top here, first thing we have is a public viewing link. Every single booth registration that you set up is going to have a dedicated link where you can send that to members of the public or attendees or anybody, and they can look and they can see the map for themselves, and they can even begin registration from there. They won't be able to register directly from this map, but they can see it directly from there, and you'll be able to hand this out to anybody you want. They don't have to be a member or anything to be able to see this. So it's a great thing if you're at the conference and you want to say, hey, check out the interactive map so that you know where everything is. People can have an easy itinerary on their phone of where things are and who is in different booths. So that's the link that you'll hand out right here. And like I said, it does that automatically for every event. You don't have to do anything separate for that. Starting at the left over here, the first thing we have is the Create New Booth section. So this is how you're going to add any new booths. It's as simple as just saying the width, and this is all in blocks, so this would be 2 blocks wide and 2 blocks tall. And you can change the color from right here as well. We have this handy little color picker. And all you have to do there is say Create New Booth. And the new booth will show up right here in the green area for new booths. From there, you can click on it and grab it, and then you can drag it to where you would like on the map. And you'll be able to see we get a little message up here at the top letting us know that it saved the coordinates for us. As soon as you get that message, you know that it's been placed on the map correctly. Now we also have the option here where we can delete booths. So if we made this one incorrectly, we can pick it up and drag it, and we can just drag it right over here into the delete box. Sometimes we have to be a little, there we go. You'll notice here too, I had a little bit of problem deleting it because it's large. If you ever have a problem, you can always click on the Edit Booth Information, and we'll go over the rest of this in a little bit, but you can click Delete Booth here and then save it, and that will get rid of it as well. That's useful. Some people have problems using the drag and drop here, and other times if the booth is too large and it fits over that, it won't delete either, so that's a handy way to override that and go through it. Next we have our background options, and we'll go into this in a moment, but essentially the booth system will allow you to upload a background image, so you can take like a blank grid or a blank floor plan of the conference hall that you're at, and you can put that in the background and then lay the booths on top of it. And these options right here will let you either make the size of the background a little bit bigger, and then you can move it along the X or the Y axis to be able to position things a little bit more how you'd like. We can also change the grid dimensions, and so what that means is right now we're working with these rows and columns of blocks right here, but we can change so we want less or more rows, less or more columns, and we can even change the heights of the individual blocks here and the widths. So again, this is very customizable. You can really customize it to the size and scope of the event that you're using. And then finally, we can change some of the grid verbiage. Now, I mentioned before we have that public page. We also have a page during registration where users can go on and they can see and click on the booths that they want. Those pages both have default instructions and verbiage on them, but if you'd like to override that and put your own verbiage in there, you can just enter them right here. This is per event, so entering custom verbiage for one event will not affect custom verbiage or default verbiage on another event. So these are completely independent. And then, like I said here, we have where the new booths appear and where you can delete booths right over here. The grid itself is down here, and like I said, we can change the dimensions with this red button here. And you can also change the background color and several other things, but this is going to be your main work area where you're dragging and dropping things at. All right, so first let's look at uploading a background image. That's probably the place that most people will start out here. And I've got a couple things set up here. So we'll say upload background image. And the first thing it's going to do is going to take you to this page where you pick and choose the image that you want to, that you like to drop. So I'm going to go here. And you can either click on choose file or you can even drag and drop it. So I made a folder here with my blank floor plan template, and I'm going to drag it into here. And I'm going to do something here that I know is not going to work very well, but it's going to be a good test example for what you can do in these cases here. So we're going to upload the image right here. And you'll see here down at the bottom it's telling me it's uploading. And as soon as I upload it, it's going to take me to the photo cropper page. Now, some tips about using this. It has to be full width of the screen just because it's always better, always better to upload a large image rather than a small one. You have much more to work with here. But you can see it's kind of hard because it's all over the screen and I can't see the full width of the image. What you can do here is every single modern browser has a way where you can zoom in and zoom out. So in Chrome, for example, what I'm using, I can go up to the settings here and my zoom angle is right here. So I can zoom in and out. So I can zoom out a little bit to see what I want. Also on the keyboard, if you hold down the control button and hit the minus or the dash key, that will do that. And then holding control and pressing the plus key will also zoom in and out like that. And then finally, holding on control and hitting 0 will change you back to 100%. So you can always get back to where you were before that. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but this can be a really powerful tool once you get the hang of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, and I'll use the tools right here. I'm going to zoom out until I can see the entire image here. And there we go. Now I can see all of it. What you do here now, you can see the part, this is the one that's going to be your crop box, and it's set automatically. This is as low as the image can be because this is going to be the actual size of your grid right now. And you can drag it bigger and wrap it around things, but you cannot change the dimensions of it. And that's just because we want to try to do the best we can to get your image to be the same size as the grid. Now you'll see here I'm going to run into an issue because I'm going to try to make it bigger, and I can make it bigger this way, but I still end up cutting out a chunk because it's not quite right. So in this case, we have two options here. I can either directly edit this image, and I could add some extra white space along the top here to make it a little bit bigger, or along the sides, so that I can sort of cut that out. But that really wouldn't get me what I want because then I'd have a bunch of white space and everything. So here is an ideal place where we could change the size of the grid to match the more horizontal one we've got here. So we're going to change our zoom back to 100% by pressing Control or holding Control and pressing 0. And then I'm just going to go back here. We'll use the back button. And then we'll go back one more. So we still have no background image because I didn't go through with it. But we know that we need to change the grid here because basically it looks like we have too many rows. So that's where the change grid dimensions comes in. And so you can see here we've got grid rows, grid columns. So again, the rows right here, columns this way. And this just tells me how many of them we want. So if you were to go through and count these, you would see 25 different rows here. Same thing with the columns. You have 45 different ones. We've got block height and block width. So each block here is going to be 25 pixels tall and 25 pixels wide. This is a pretty good standard one to leave it at, but you can always make these blocks bigger or smaller if you really want to. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. And then the grid background color, this typically isn't used a whole lot, but if you just want to use a color instead of a background image, you can set the color to something different here. So I know we need to knock some rows off here, so let's try knocking off about 5 rows, and then we'll save it. Anytime you change the dimensions, it's going to reload this page, and you can see here now it looks a little bit closer to the image that I'm using. So let's try and upload that background image again and see if we get a better result this time. So I'll go back through here, and we'll drag and drop my image into the file, and then we'll say upload again. And it's going to upload my image again, and then we're going to go back to the photo cropper page. So once again, in order to zoom out, I'm going to hold Control and hit the dash button, or the minus button, and we're going to zoom out so I can see the whole image. And now we can see it. I can drag this around, and we're going to make it larger. And perfect. Now it comes in on the dimensions we need. This bottom part here, this is included in the image. It just lets you know that you're getting close to the bottom here, so that's okay. Okay, so we'll move this up a little bit, and there we go. So now I'm happy with that. Now it's got my whole image. I have minimal white space around the edges. This is exactly how I want it to look. So now we say crop image. And we're going to wait for this to crop. And I'm going to also get it back to full screen by pressing Control and 0 again. And here we go. This looks exactly like I want. Now from here I can hit save, or I can start over. And I should also mention I went back to normal here by pressing Control or holding Control and pressing 0. It sets me back to 100%. You can also go back into your settings and change your zoom back to 100% there. So anyway, I could either start over if I did not like the way that it cropped, if it gave me something weird, or I thought it looked a little bit off, I could click start over here, or I can click save. And so we're just going to click save because I like the way that this one looks. And now you'll see here it's taking me back to the grid. It's placed my image, or my background image, onto the grid, and we're all good to go from here. So now we've got our background image. Now is where the other options come into play. So now I'll just do these so you can see it. If you're using Chrome or Firefox, you can put your box or your cursor in these ones, and you can see these up and down buttons. You can actually just use the buttons on your keyboard as well to move these up, and you can see that it adjusts along with it. So it's really, really easy to use from there. Or like you said, you can click these ones here and do that. And then the Y position and the X position work the same way. You can press up and down to do that. And this would be in a case like, for example, this line here at the bottom. It'd be a little bit nicer if this was lined up along the grid for me. So I can move this down here until we get it right where I want, which is right about there. And that way things are looking more on the level across the whole thing. There's a lot of, when you're setting up the background image and stuff here, you're going to have a lot of instances where you're doing just small tweaking and, changing sizes and stuff until you get it just right. But eventually you'll be able to line it up just with the tools that are here. All right, so now we've gone through changing the grid dimensions, and we've uploaded the background image, and we've moved our Y position a little bit. The X position we can move a little bit, but I think that's actually pretty good about where it is. But it works the same exact way, and you can see it as you move it. It will move around for you, so you get a good preview of it. All right, so now let's go into creating some booths here. Now, like I said, these are really easy to set up here. These are set as by default, just with 2x2 and then with the gray color. So we can just click Create New Booth, and then we can drag and drop this one onto the grid where we want it. So let's put it right there. Now, as you saw before, we have a ton of options for booths. To get to those options, you just have to click on the little gear icon up here. And that will load up this dialog here with lots of different information. First thing I'd like to point out here is every single option has a little eye icon next to it, which will open up another dialog which gives you instructions on what exactly each field does. So if you're ever confused when you're coming in here about what any of these things do, all you have to do is click that icon and it will give you a quick refresher on what they will do. So the booth name here, we can call this whatever we want. I'm just going to call it 2x2 here. The booth price, you can give it whatever you want. This will just add it to their event registration. So let's just say it's $15. Booth number. This is something that will show up directly on the booth. Typically, most people want to put numbers there, but you can put a small amount of text there as well if you wanted to. So let's go. We can use an alphanumerical. Let's say it's A1 is the booth name. Or the booth number, excuse me. Now, once you enter a booth number in, you get a few different options down here that come up. We can display the booth number on the booth, and you'll see here if we click that, it displays here. And this little preview one will keep up to date anytime you make any changes over here. It will keep updating this one, so it will give you an exact preview of what that booth is going to look like once you do these things to it. So let's change the booth color to something else. How about we'll make it red to make it look pretty. And then we get the number color down here. So we can click this one. These all use color pickers, so you don't even have to know the color numbers. You can just drag it around to where you want. So we'll change the number color to white, and then you can see right here it changes the number color. Font size, we can bump this one up, and again, I'm just using the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard once I focus on this element. So there we go. We'll make this very big in the center there. And then number X position and number Y position, these will move, as you can see, it will move the number along the X-axis, and this one will move it along the Y-axis. So you can always move it up or down or anything once you get it in there. Display only. This one you want to use for if you want to make a booth that's not really registerable. So you want to make a big block for a registration table, or you want to make a big block to denote that this is where you get food or something like that. So you can make these little quick indicators to give people ideas of what things are without having to make them something that they register for. So in that case, all you have to do is click display only, and it will tell the system that, create this booth, but it's not one that people can register for. It was just there for pure information. Excuse me. The next one down we already looked at, that's delete booth. So if you have a large booth or for whatever reason the drag option is not working, you can always click delete booth here and then save it, and it will get rid of it for you. Booth color we already changed, but it uses the color picker like everything else, so we can change it to anything that we want. The booth height and the booth width, these are the ones that we would set over here originally, but if we wanted to, we can always change these to make them bigger at a later time. So say we wanted to double size that one, we can do it there. Triangle mode. This is, by default, all booths are going to be made into some kind of rectangle. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a square, but it has to be some kind of rectangle that it starts with. But if we want, we can turn this into a triangle just by clicking this one. Now you'll notice a couple things. We lose some options. Triangles can't have borders just because of the way that the web code works for it. But you'll also notice that the number here disappears. Now it's not so much that the number disappears, it's that the X and Y position for triangles and for rectangles differs drastically, so we just have to reposition it. And the reason that we're not seeing it when we go into triangle mode is because the text is white. Now if I change the number color to black, we can see that it moved up here because that's where it's calculating its new position at. So once it does this, we want to take this and we want to move it, and we're going to move it down some. So we're going to move it this way, and then we're going to move it over to the right a little bit also, and then maybe down just a little bit more. So once we've done that and we've moved it, then we can change the number color back to white and save it. And you'll see here again, if I change it back into normal mode, the number disappears, but again, it didn't really disappear, it moved down here because they calculate the positioning differently. So anytime you think you've lost your number, if it disappears, just change it to black or something that will show up against this white background, and you'll be able to see it again. All right, so actually we're going to go out of triangle mode just to show these other options down here. And we'll just set this back to 0 and 0. Okay. So the next thing we've got here is border color. So you'll see each one has a 1 pixel thickness border around it, and by default it's going to be black. But if we wanted to, we can change that to like red if we wanted. Border thickness, we can then move this up or down. So if we move this up a whole lot, you'll see here we get a huge thick border. If we move it down, you can see that the border goes away completely. So you have complete control over that border if you want to make it thick, small, non-existent, anything you want there. Make it a little thicker there just to show it. Border radius. This one isn't naturally apparent, but as soon as you start using it, you'll see what it does. It basically lets you round the corners of the box so we don't have these sharp edges. So as soon as I start turning this up, you'll see that it rounds them, makes it into a more rounded rectangle here. And if I move it up enough, it turns into a circle. So you can easily make circular booths like this if you want to. And we would just move the number over a little bit to account for that. So let me change this again to 0. The final one down here is for booth rotation. And again, this isn't totally apparent, but as soon as you start using it, you can actually see what it does. Is it just spins the booth however you want. So if you've got angled corners or something on your map or whatever, you can angle this around however you want, and it will save it like that. So we can even make diamond-shaped booths if we want. And then finally down here we have the booth description. This will be added. You can add any text that you want, and then when someone is viewing during registration or when they're viewing the public map, when they hover over it, they'll be able to see what the description is, along with the name and the price and the number. So all this information can be added so that when people are registering, they can get a good idea of what they're registering for. And so then we'll save this booth, and you'll see here it saved all my changes exactly. And I can go right back into here if I want and make any other changes that I want. They'll all take effect immediately. All right, I think that's everything on the grid editor here. Just to give you an idea here, because this is just a very simple event, I'm going to show you one that I have already set up that's much more complicated. So here we go. So this is just kind of a quick example of everything that you can do here. You can make, long rounded booths. You can make slanted booths. You can put some in the corner. We've got some circles here. We've got some thick borders with some circles with some thick borders. We've got some very large booths that are all different color, which we have over text on them instead. Oops, let me drag that. We've got more circles and triangles. We've got a big display booth right here. So this is just a quick example of some of the really cool things that you can do with this. And then if we were to view the public viewing link, we'll open this here. This is what it would look like from the public side if you sent people this link. So this right here, this is the sample text that I had added. Remember I said that you could override the normal instructions. Anything you put up in those normal instructions is going to end up right here. Otherwise, it's going to use the default text there. And then the registration map is going to show up like this for people. We can hover over things, and it lets me know that it's available. It gives me the booth name, the booth number, and the price, and then all the description down below that. I don't have any of these registered for right now, but if someone had registered for it, it would also tell me at the bottom who registered for it, and it would show me their logo. And there will be a separate video detailing on what the actual experience is like for members when they're registering. So if you're interested in that, please go ahead and watch that video. But like I said, you get a really good idea from here, and they all highlight and everything. And from this area, they can click Begin Registration, and they can launch right into the registration process, and the map will be part of that where they can select the ones that they want. All right, well, I hope that this was helpful, and by now you should have a better understanding of how to use the grid editor. And like I said, we'll have more videos about what the user registration experience would be like and how to find some reports and see who's registered for what booths. All right, thank you very much, and have a great day.